There comes a moment in life where you've cried your last tear over people who walked away. When you've begged your last time for someone to love you right. When you finally get tired of trying to fix what was never yours to carry in the first place. And in that moment, oh, I feel God right here. In that moment, you got to make a decision. Not for them, but for you. This message tonight is not for the crowd chasers. It's not for the approval seekers. It's for the weary, the worn out, the ones who gave everything and got left with nothing. It's for the ones who are ready to stop breaking themselves to keep other people whole. If that's you, then baby, this word is for you. Because today we're going to talk about something real. We're going to talk about how to focus on yourself and let them go. Shifting situations, shutting doors. It's not always the devil. Stop giving the enemy credit for what God is doing to free you. Sometimes that breakup, that betrayal, that separation, that's divine intervention. That's God protecting your destiny from contamination. But the problem is we confuse comfort with calling. We get so used to dysfunction that peace feels foreign. You're not supposed to feel broken to be loved. You're not supposed to shrink yourself to be accepted. You are not supposed to sacrifice your mental health, your purpose, your identity, just to keep someone else comfortable. But we do it. And do you know why? Because we're afraid. Afraid to be alone. Afraid to start over. Afraid that if we let them go, we won't find something better. But let me speak directly to that fear. What's meant for you will into places they were never built to go. And it's killing your elevation. So now here you are, stuck between who you were and who you're becoming. And God is saying, let it go. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the shame. Let go of the need to be understood by people who were never qualified to define you. Let go of the weight you've been carrying just to keep the peace. You're not responsible for fixing what God broke apart. And I know your heart is tender. I know your soul is tired. But I want to remind you something. There is nothing God asks you to release that he won't replace with something greater. He is not the God of subtraction. He's the God of multiplication. But you've got to make room. You've got to clear the clutter. You've got to create space in your life, in your heart, in your spirit, so he can pour of you free. But you won't walk out the cell because you're more committed to the pain than you are to the promise. And I know it hurts. I know it's not easy to let go. I know you thought they'd be there forever. I know you pictured them at your table, at your breakthrough, at your blessing. But let me tell you, not everyone is assigned to your next level. Some people were part of the process, not the problem. Don't confuse the two. And just because they were necessary for your development doesn't mean they're necessary for your destiny. When a rocket launches into space, it has boosters attached. Those boosters are critical to getting it off the ground. But they are designed to fall away at a certain altitude. If they stay attached too long, they become dead weight. Some of y'all are trying to take people with you. Let's see. One of the hardest things in life, one of the hardest lessons is learning how to release what no longer serves you. Because let's be honest, it's easy to hold on. It's easy to stay connected to something familiar, even when it's dysfunctional. It's easy to keep calling it royalty when in truth, it's bondage. Oh, I know I'm talking to somebody right now. We keep dragging people along, dragging baggage, dragging old identities, old stories, dragging relationships that have expired like spoiled milk. And then we wonder why our spirit feels sick. We wonder why our joy is weak, why our peace keeps slipping away like water through our fingers. It's It's because we're carrying things that God has already told us to put down. Let me tell you something. When God starts shaking things in your life, when he starts removing people, never require you to lose yourself to keep it. If it's costing you your joy, your clarity, your peace, it's too expensive. It's time to walk away. Now I hear someone saying, but I've invested too much. I've been there too long. They need me. Baby, let me tell you something. What good is it to save someone else while you drown? What good is it to keep being the hero in someone else's story when you haven't even finished writing your own? Your loyalty should not be a life sentence. You can be loving and still let go. You can be kind and still say goodbye. You can forgive someone and still move on. We've got to stop calling it love when it's actually fear of being alone. We've got to stop calling it commitment when it's really avoidance. What you won't release will become your prison. And God is trying to set some in new oil. You can't hold healing with hands full of history. You can't step into destiny while holding on to dead weight. You've got to choose freedom over familiarity. And I promise you, if you can just find the strength, the faith, the courage to let go of what's breaking you, you'll finally see what it feels like to live full, because some of the greatest blessings are waiting for you on the other side of goodbye. You got to understand something deep today. Your destiny is not tied to who left. Let me say that again. For the brokenhearted, the confused, the rejected, the ones still asking, why did they leave me? Your destiny is not tied to who walked away. If they could walk, if they had the strength to go, if they made peace with your absence, then baby, they were never assigned to your future. Stop trying to resurrect what God has already called finished. We spend so much time looking back, rewinding the pain like it's a movie, asking what we could have done differently. We replay conversations, we search for closure, we scroll through memories like maybe we'll find a reason to hold on. But listen to me closely. Sometimes the closure you're waiting for isn't a conversation, it's a revelation. A moment of truth where you finally realize they were necessary for your growth, but not meant for your arrival. You keep trying to fit people into chapters they were never written into. And all it's doing is delaying the story God is trying to write through your life. There are some people who were only meant to take you part of the way. They were never meant to stay. Just because they were a part of your history doesn't mean they deserve access to your destiny. And here's the danger. We start confusing who was with who is. We try to carry people into places where their presence becomes a problem. That's why God had to shut it down. That's why it had to end the way it did. It wasn't to hurt you, it was to heal you. Because if they had stayed any longer, they would have poisoned the purpose on your life. Now, I know it doesn't feel like protection. I know it feels like betrayal. I know it looks like loss. But trust me, God sees what you can. He knows what they were saying when you weren't in the room. He knows the motives behind their actions. He knows who your heart can handle, but your future cannot afford. And we've all been there, begging people to stay who've already made up their minds to leave, trying to prove our worth to someone who was blind to it the whole time. You think if you love harder, serve more, shrink yourself enough, they'll finally see you? But what if God is using their absence to help you finally see yourself? You keep chasing people who left you while God is calling you into purpose, and that chase is exhausting. It's heavy. It's draining. Because you're not just carrying yourself, you're carrying the weight of who left what they said and the version of you that was never enough for them. But let me tell you something powerful. You don't need them to validate what God has already confirmed. You were chosen before they knew your name. You were called before they came into your life. You were anointed before you even realized what was in you. They may have left, but what God put in you is still there. The oil is still flowing. The favor is still on you. The purpose is still intact. You may have been abandoned, but you are not empty. And don't you dare let their absence make you question your value. Don't you dare let their rejection rewrite your identity. People will leave for all kinds of reasons. Fear, jealousy, immaturity, divine timing. But their decision does not diminish your design. They didn't call you. God did. And if God called you, if God appointed you, he's going to anoint you for the journey ahead. With or without them. I need you to stop looking at the door they walked out of and start looking at the one God is opening. There's a future ahead of you that is so much greater than the pain behind you. But you can't see it clearly until you stop staring at the past. You can't step into a new thing still grieving an old attachment. Sometimes the blessing isn't in what God brings, it's in what he removes. You were never meant to beg for love. You were never meant to plead for connection. You were not hard to love. They were just not equipped to love you properly. And that's not your fault. So let them go in peace. Release the bitterness, let go of the need to be chosen by people who couldn't even see you. And when you do that, something beautiful happens. You make room, you make space in your soul for the people who are really for you. For the relationships that don't drain but pour. For the connections that see you, honor you, and align with the version of you that God is calling for. You make room for divine alignment, for new oil, for purpose that runs deep and strong. So if they left, let them. If they stopped calling, release it. If they no longer show up for you, stop showing up in places where your presence is overlooked. You don't have time to chase what God is trying to subtract. There's too much ahead of you to keep crying over what's behind you. You are not losing, you're being launched. Sometimes God will pull you into a season where you feel like you're all by yourself, where the phone stops ringing, where the support you were used to dries up, where the people you leaned on suddenly feel distant. And at first, you'll think something's wrong. You'll wonder, did I do something? Am I being punished? Why does it feel like everybody's going quiet? But what you don't realize is that silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. See, we don't talk enough about what it feels like to be in a season of isolation. We don't preach enough about what it means when God starts separating you, setting you apart, pulling you out of circles you used to run in. Because we've been taught that growth should feel good, that elevation should come with celebration, but real transformation, that kind that shakes you to your core, that prepares you for purpose, that kind happens in isolation. You look at all the greats, look at anyone God used in a mighty way, and you'll see a season where they had to go through something, a season where they didn't have a crowd, a season where they didn't have applause, just a word from God and a wilderness in front of them. And it's in that wilderness, in that solitude, in that sacred quiet that God begins to deal with the real you. Because here's the truth. You can't heal clearly when you're surrounded by noise. You can't heal deeply when you're constantly distracted. You can't see yourself accurately when you're always performing for other people's approval. So God will strip it all away. He'll remove the stage. He'll cancel the show. He'll shut down the crowds. And he'll whisper to your spirit, now that it's just me and you. Let's deal with the truth. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. That's where the tears come. That's where the memories resurface. That's where the patterns get exposed. Because when God isolates you, he's not doing it to punish you. He's doing it to heal you, to detox you from the trauma, to cleanse your spirit from what you picked up in broken places, to break you free from codependency. He's doing heart surgery, soul work, and yes, it hurts. But healing always hurts before it helps. Some of you are in that space right now and you don't even realize what's happening. You've been calling it a dry season, but it's actually a pruning season. You've been calling it loneliness, but it's actually alignment. You've been thinking God forgot about you when in fact, he's been thinking about you the most. Because what's coming next in your life can't be built on broken foundations. The next level of your calling can't be carried by the version of you that was still people-pleasing, still compromising, still running from yourself, still tied to the crowd. So God had to get you alone. He had to pull you back so he could launch you forward. He had to silence the opinions so you could hear his voice again. You've got to learn how to be okay with being by yourself for a while. You've got to learn how to sit in the quiet without reaching for a distraction. You've got to learn how to look in the mirror without turning away from the truth. Because the cocoon is never comfortable, but it's necessary. It's tight, it's dark, it's lonely, but it's where wings are made. And you can't fly if you skip the process. Don't rush out of what God is trying to use to refine you. Don't fight the solitude when it's the very space that's saving you. You spend so much of your life pouring into others, showing up strong, keeping it all together. And now God is saying, it's your turn. I want to pour back into you. But I can't do that in the crowd. I need you still. I need you present. I need you open. This is not your downfall. It's your foundation. This is not abandonment, it's alignment. This is not the end, it's the beginning of something new. But you got to trust the silence. You got to stop calling the quiet a curse. God's voice is loudest when everything else is still. So sit with it. Sit with the discomfort. Sit with the uncertainty. Sit with the questions. Because even in the stillness, God is moving. Even in the silence, he's working. And the you that's going to walk out of this season is going to be stronger, wiser, freer, more whole than the one who walked in. You're not being left behind. You're being called deep. Let him finish what he started in you. We live in a world that's constantly pulling on us, constantly telling us to do more, be more, give more, show up for everybody, carry the load, hold it down, and smile through it all like we're not cracking under the weight. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you checked in on you? Not your friends, not your family, not the job, and not the ministry. You. We've been taught that self-focus is selfish, that taking a step back to breathe, to rest, to heal, to realign somehow makes you weak or uncaring. But let me tell you the truth today. Self-focus is not selfish. It's strategic. Because if the vessel is broken, the oil can't flow. If you're not whole, everything you touch starts to feel the cracks. You can't keep pouring to everybody else and expect to stay full. Eventually, even the strongest vessel runs dry. Some of y'all are running on fumes and calling it faith. You're serving with a smile, but suffering in silence. You're the one everybody leans on, but you don't even remember the last time you leaned on God just for you. You're too busy being strong for everybody else to admit that you're tired. But you can't keep living like that. You can't keep bleeding internally just to look put together externally. At some point, you've got to say, God, I need to focus on me for a minute. Not because I don't love them, but because I can't lose me trying to save them. And it's not about neglecting your responsibilities. It's about recognizing that you are a responsibility too. Your mind matters, your heart matters, your peace matters, your purpose matters. And if you don't make time to tend to it, don't be surprised when everything around you starts falling apart. Because a neglected soul will always become a noisy spirit. You start getting short with people. You start second guessing your worth. You start questioning your calling, not because you're not capable, but because you're empty. You see, the enemy doesn't always come after you with chaos. Sometimes he comes after you with busyness. He'll fill your life with so many distractions, so many obligations, so many false senses of urgency that you don't even notice you stop being present with yourself. He'll keep you running in circles, fixing everything but your own soul. And that's not God's design. God is not glorified in your burnout. He's not impressed with how much you sacrifice while silently suffering. He wants you well. He wants you to sit down long enough to hear his voice again. He wants you to slow down enough to let him deal with the layers you've been ignoring. He wants to minister to you, not through your titles, not through your role, not through your performance, but through your personhood. You, just as you are, flawed, tired, imperfect, real. There's power in pulling back. That's wisdom in saying not right now so you can recalibrate. There's grace in setting boundaries. And let me tell you something. You don't need anyone's permission to protect your peace. You don't need a committee to validate your healing. You don't need applause to take a break. You just need to trust that what God is doing in you is just as important as what he does through you. Because some of y'all are so used to being needed. You built your identity around being everybody's rescue plan. But let me ask you this, who's rescuing you? When the phone stops ringing, when the crowd stops clapping, when the needs stop pouring in, do you even recognize who you are without the performance? Or have you lost yourself in the role? God is calling you back to yourself, not the you they expect, not the you pretend to be, the real you. The you who hasn't had time to process the pain. The you who's been functioning but not flourishing. The you who's been performing miracles for others but privately praying for your own breakthrough. That's the you he wants to heal. That's the you he's after. But you got to slow down long enough to let him reach you. Stop apologizing for prioritizing your soul. Stop explaining why you're setting boundaries. Stop justifying why you need a moment to breathe. You are not a machine. You are not a miracle dispenser. You are a child of God with a soul that needs tending to, a heart that needs nurturing, a purpose that needs clarity. And if that means stepping back for a season, so be it. If that means turning off the noise, so be it. If that means saying no when you used to say yes, then so be it. Because when you focus on you first, and you keep getting frustrated trying to explain divine instructions to people who were never part of the conversation. You keep getting disappointed when they don't get it, when they pull back, when they look at you sideways like, who do you think you are? But let me tell you, God didn't ask them who you are. He told you. You're trying to convince people to see what only faith can reveal. You're waiting on natural eyes to comprehend a supernatural calling. And baby, it's not going to happen. Because sometimes God will hide your greatness from the people around you. Not to hurt you, but to protect you. Because if they saw all of what's in you too soon, they try to control it. They try to confine it. They try to mold it into something that makes them comfortable. So he'll let them underestimate you. He'll let them mislabel you. He'll let them walk away from you. Not because you're not enough, but because their absence is a part of your development. because rejection can be direction. And sometimes the people who don't support you are just confirmation that you're being called to something they can't carry. But it's hard. I know it's hard because we're human and humans crave connection. We want to be seen, known, understood. But here's the truth. You don't need everyone to see you when you're already seen by the one who made you. You don't need public applause when you have private assurance. You don't need the crowd when you're walking with your Creator. Stop postponing your purpose, waiting for consensus. Some of you are sitting on books you were supposed to write, businesses you're supposed to start, ministries. When you take care of what's going on inside, you give God room to do what only He can do. You stop pretending and start healing. You stop striving and start receiving. You stop performing and start living. You owe yourself that. Some of y'all are waiting for people to understand you before you move. Waiting for them to support you before you step out. Waiting for them to clap for you, affirm you, believe in you. And God is saying, stop waiting for agreement. Stop waiting for approval. Stop waiting for permission. Because the truth is, you may never get it. And that's not because you're not worthy. It's not because you're not gifted. It's because some people are not equipped to recognize what God put inside of you. See, when God gives you a vision, He gives it to you, not your friends, not your family, not your co-worker. You were supposed to launch. Healing you were supposed to step into, but you're waiting for everybody around you to cheer you on, and they're not going to do it. Not because they hate you, but because what God is doing in you ain't about them. You've got to be okay with walking alone sometimes. You got to be okay with looking crazy to people who don't understand what's coming. You've got to be okay being misunderstood while God molds you into something they've never seen. Because if you're always chasing their approval, you'll miss His assignment. And the call on your life is too great, too specific, too sacred to be delayed by opinions. You gotta stop needing everybody to agree with you before you obey God. You gotta get delivered from people, delivered from needing them to see what God showed you. Because some of the greatest moves of God in your life are going to require you to walk by yourself, at least for a season. Remember, Noah built an ark in the middle of dry land. Abraham left everything familiar on nothing but a promise. Joseph dreamed dreams that made his own brothers hate him. David was anointed in front of people who didn't believe in him. Jesus walked the road to Calvary alone. So if you feel isolated, if you feel like they don't get you, like they've stopped clapping, like they've backed away, congratulations. You're in good company. You don't have time to waste explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have time to keep shrinking your light just to make others comfortable in the dark. You don't have time to delay destiny waiting on confirmation from people who aren't even qualified to speak into your future. You've got an assignment. You've got a calling. And you've got to run with it. Even if no one else is running beside you. You're not crazy. You're called. You're not too much. You're just enough for what you've been built for. So stop apologizing for dreaming big. Stop holding back just because they're uncomfortable. Stop doubting yourself just because they didn't believe in you. What they can't see doesn't disqualify what God has declared. So if they don't clap, clap for yourself. If they don't believe, believe anyway. If they walk away, let them walk. But don't you dare stop. Don't you dare turn around. Don't you dare abandon what God told you just because they couldn't handle it. Keep going.